Despite all of the negative coverage in regard to Donald Trump's rhetoric and in some cases policies toward Black and Latino voters, fact of the matter is he has been just increasing his support more and more. Every poll shows that he is getting more support among Black and Latino voters. In fact, there was an analysis done on this very issue in the Washington Post where they took the average of the 5 top quality polls on the issue, and here's what they found. Multiple polls in recent weeks have shown Trump performing historically well among Black and Hispanic voters in head-to-head matchups with Biden, helping put him neck and neck with Biden in a way he rarely was during their 2020 matchup, a point that you like to make a lot, Cenk, in regard to the, basically risks the Democratic Party is taking by just going along with Biden running for re-election.
Yeah, I just want to give you guys one data point here that's that I wish I'd said all throughout. When Biden barely beat Trump in the Electoral College by 44,000 votes in 2020, on that day he had not just in polling but in the actual results, he had a 4.5 point lead in the popular vote, 4.5 points. So when you see him trailing by a half a point to a point to Trump, understand even beating Trump by half a point isn't going to do it. Beating him by 2 points isn't going to do it. He needs to beat Trump by at least 4.5 points in the popular vote to win the Electoral College. He ain't anywhere near 4.5 points up on Donald Trump. So we are headed for an iceberg, and I cannot get anyone to change the direction of the ship, tyt.com/dropout to do that. Go ahead, Anna.
All right, so let's get to what the average of the polls indicate. So across 5 high quality polls that have broken out non-white voters in the past month, Trump is averaging, I can't even believe this, 20% of Black voters and 42% of Hispanic voters. So that's not based on one poll, that's based on an average of 5 separate polls. And just to give you an idea of how stunning those numbers are, no Republican presidential candidate in the last 50 years has approached receiving 20% of the Black vote. Republicans took 18% in 1972 and 16% in 1976, but they have not taken more than 12% of the Black vote since then. Okay, now some individual polls are even more alarming. So this is not based on an average. I want to focus on the Quinnipiac University poll because the numbers on that one specific poll are even higher. Trump actually takes as much as 25% of Black voters in a recent Quinnipiac poll and 47% of Hispanic voters in a recent CBS News poll. Numbers that would appear implausible even if those voters have trended toward him significantly. Now, this wouldn't appear to be strictly about Trump. Apparently, Fox News's pollsters just last week tested 7 2024 Republicans against Biden, and just about every GOP candidate was near 20% support among Black voters.
Yeah, ironically, the one that wasn't was Tim Scott at 15%.
Yeah, Tim Scott performed the worst among them.
Yeah.
No, Democrats have taken the Black, especially the Black vote, for granted in this country. Let's keep it 100. Okay, the rhetoric isn't enough anymore. It just isn't. When you promise that you're gonna pass a voting rights bill and then you don't even try, there are consequences for that. Biden's promise to pass a voting rights bill was tied to the 2 Senate runoff races in Georgia. You know who came out to vote in droves? You wanna know who did the organizing, the canvassing, the hard work on the ground necessary to get the voters to the polls to vote for the Democrats in the Senate? It was Black voters, Black organizers, Black canvassers. The promise was that in return, they're gonna get at least a fight on a voting rights bill. He didn't even try. Okay, so when you make promises you don't keep, there are consequences for that. I mean, you should have noticed that with Obama, right? I think the Obama administration and some of their failures, their response to the 2008 economic collapse led to Trump. There were consequences for it, but apparently no one learns anything.
Yeah, so the average for the last 50 years has been Republican presidential candidates getting 9% of the black vote. So if it goes to 20%, let alone Hispanics going up to 42%, the Democrat has almost no chance of winning. Those numbers are unrecoverable. So they barely win when it's 9%. They cannot sustain 20% of black folks leaving the Democratic Party and voting for the Republican. So why is it happening? There's three main reasons. One is what Anna just mentioned, enough with taking them for granted and never delivering on any of your promises. Look, there's tons of issues that are not related to race, but that still affect black people just as much as they affect anyone else that they didn't deliver on. But on voting rights, that was a very specific promise that they made. And they were adamant about that promise. And they painted it as, of course, no brainer, no question. There was two things that they said were like definites: voting rights and minimum wage, higher minimum wage. And those were the first two things they threw under the bus. And they did it pretty spectacularly. They didn't fight 1% for it. They immediately were like, oh, the Republicans object, then forget it. They threw it away and lit it on fire. Biden didn't do 1% fight on it. And so, by the way, they would have needed to get rid of the filibuster, but they did get rid of the filibuster to lift the debt ceiling in the first 2 years, because that was their beloved stock market. So it is unquestionable that Biden and the Democratic Party valued the stock market higher than they valued black voters that gave them that victory. So now, if Democrats in Washington see this segment, they'll want to shoot the messenger, us. They'll say, shush, shush, don't tell people what we did. Then they won't vote for us. Brother, the news is out, okay? And yeah, I'm in journalism. I tell people what actually happened, not your BS propaganda, okay? Do better, do better. Now the other two reasons. Well, they've become elitists, both like in terms of optics and in terms of who they serve. So Trump is going around ordering people McDonald's. It's optics, it's not real. Trump's doesn't actually deliver for anyone, but he's constantly going to the auto workers, giving, acting like he cares about the average guy. Meanwhile, Biden and the Democrats are like, we passed the semiconductor bill. Well, congrats, brother, and maybe that's necessary, but you're missing the optics and the marketing of politics, let alone the substance.
Right, no, let me jump in on that.
Okay, and then I got a third one.
Okay, so yeah, hold on that. So look, there's policy and there's politics, okay? I love policy, I kind of hate politics, right? I hate the horse race, I hate the theater, I hate the optics. But the fact of the matter is, the optics are important in winning. They just are. So when you have Donald Trump go to East Palestine, Ohio after the train derailment and look out and pretend like he's looking out for the first responders, the firefighters, when he's at McDonald's and he says he's gonna buy everyone a burger, right? Optically, that's perfect, okay? That's how you give people the impression that you care about them. Now, behind the scenes, you look at his policies and it was a completely different story, but it doesn't matter. People, unfortunately, oftentimes vote based on vibes. What kind of vibe do you give them? And if you give people the vibe that you care about them, that you're gonna show up, they're likely to vote for you. When it came to that train derailment, which was a huge story, Biden's the president of the United States. He couldn't even be bothered to go. He didn't go there.
And by the way, on the substance, they also totally failed. They've done no safety precautions on those railway companies since, neither Buttigieg or Biden. Why? Because those guys donate to them. So then you wonder why you're losing black and Latino voters, because you're losing all the voters when you do things like that. And then finally, reason number three, Biden. 72% of the country says he's not gonna make it through a second term, that he's not physically healthy enough to make it through the second term. 72% is a giant number. It includes a lot of blacks and Latinos who are just the same as the rest of us going, that brother's not gonna make it, okay? And so, but you keep shoving Biden down their throats and go, oh yeah. Did you know that if you don't vote for Biden, you're not black? Remember, Biden said that. Biden said that to Charlemagne. Are you kidding me? So, okay, Democratic Party, it's your funeral, but the problem is it's also our funeral. Apparently, I'm the only person in the country who actually believes that democracy's on the line and this is the most important election, because they're not acting like it. Their numbers are awful, and what's your excuse for staying with Biden? Well, he beat Trump when he was 12 points higher and he barely beat him. That means he's definitely going to lose. Well, he is the president and everybody must bow their heads. No, on the left, you're not supposed to bow your head. Now he's lost minorities, or lost enough of them that it's unrecoverable. But guys, you like the iceberg, go ahead and run right into it. For the rest of you, tyt.com/dropout. I don't know, I'm desperate. Let's try to put pressure on this guy to drop out, because this ain't gonna get it done. So when you get President Trump, I guarantee you they blame us, but you see the numbers ahead of time, a year ahead of time. You could shoot the messenger, but the reality is this is the message being delivered by America, including now Black and Latino voters.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.